Ya. Hoy en Lecturas para Tortugas, con mi Tito y mi Chevy, vamos a leer The Cat Who Went to Heaven. Vamos a leer en inglés The Cat Who Went to Heaven by Elizabeth Coatsworth. Y dice así. Once upon a time, far away in Japan, a poor young artist sat alone in his little house, waiting for his dinner. His housekeeper had gone to market, and he sat silent to think of all the things he wished he would bring home. He expected her to hurry in at any minute, going and opening her little basket to show him how wisely she had spent their few pennies. He heard her step and jumped up. He was very hungry. But the housekeeper lingered by the door, and the basket stayed shut. "Come," he cried, "what is in that basket?" The housekeeper trembled and held the basket tight in two hands. "It has seemed to me, sir," she said, "that we were very lonely here." Her wrinkled face looked humble and obstinate. "Lonely," said the artist. "I should think so. How can we have guests when we have nothing left to offer them? It is so long since I have tasted rice cakes that I forget what they taste like." And he sighed again, for he loved rice cakes and dumplings and little cakes filled with sweet bean jelly. He loved tea served in fine china cups in company with some friend, seated on a flat cushion, talking perhaps about a spray of peach blossom standing like a little princess in an alcove. But weeks and weeks had gone by since anyone had brought even the smallest picture. The poor artist was glad enough to have rice and a coarse fish now and then. If he did not sell another picture soon, he would not have even that. His eyes went back to the basket. Perhaps the old woman had managed to pick up a turnip or two, or even a peach, too ripe to have long over. "Sir," said the housekeeper, seeing the direction of his look, "it has often seemed to me that I was kept away by rats." At that, the artist laughed out loud. "Rats," he repeated. "Rats? My dear old woman, no rats come to such a poor house as this were not the smallest crumb falls to the mats." Then he looked at the housekeeper, and a dreadful suspicion filled his mind. "You have brought us home nothing to eat," he said. "True, master," said the old woman sorrowfully. "You have brought us home a cat," said the artist. "My master knows everything," answered the housekeeper, bowing low. Then the artist jumped to his feet and strode up and down the room and pulled his chair, and it seemed to him that he would die for hunger and anger. A cat! he cried. "Have you gone mad? Here we are starving, and you must bring home a goblin to share the little we have, and perhaps to suck our blood at night. Yes, it will be fine to wake up in the dark and feel teeth at our throats and look into eyes as big as lanterns. But perhaps you're right, perhaps we are so miserable, it would be a good thing to have us die at once and be carried over the ridgepoles in the yaws of a devil." "But master, there are many good cats too," cried the poor woman. "Have you forgotten the little boy who drew all the pictures of cats on the screens of the deserted temple, and then went to sleep in a closet and had such a racket in the middle of the night? And in the morning, when he awoke again, he found the giant rat lying dead, master. The rat who had come to kill him." "Who destroyed the rat, sir? Tell me that." "It was his own cats. There they sat on the screen, and he had drawn them, but there was blood on their claws. And he became a great artist like yourself. Surely there are many good cats, master." Then the old woman began to cry. The artist stopped and looked at her as the tears fell from her bright black eyes and ran down the wrinkles in her cheeks. Why should he be angry? He had gone hungry before. Well, he said, Sometimes it is good fortune to have even a devil in the household. It keeps other devils away. Now I suppose this cat of yours will wish to eat. Perhaps it may arrange for us to have some food in the house, who knows? We can't be worse off than we are. The housekeeper bowed very low in gratitude. There is not a kinder heart in the whole town than my master's, she said, and prepared to carry the covered basket into the kitchen. But the artist stopped her. Like all artists, he was curious. Let us see the creature, he said, pretending he scarcely cared whether he saw it or not. So the old woman put down the basket and opened the lid. Nothing happened for a moment. Then a round, pretty white head came slowly above the bamboo, and two big yellow eyes looked about the room, and a little white paw appeared on the rim. Suddenly, without moving the basket at all, a little white cat jumped out on the mat and stood there as a person might who scarcely knew if he were working. Now that the cat was out of the basket, the artist saw that she had yellow and black spots on her sides, a little tail like a rabbit's, and that she did everything daintily. "Oh, a three-colored cat," said the artist. "Why didn't you say so from the beginning? They are very lucky, I understand." As soon as the little cat heard him speak so kindly, she walked over to him and bowed down her head as though she was saluting him, while the old woman clapped her hands for joy. The artist forgot that he was hungry. He had seen nothing so lowly as the cat for a long time. "She will have to have a name," he declared, sitting down again on the old matting, while the cat stood sedately before him. "Let me see. She's like new snow dotted with gold pieces on lacquer. She's like a white flower on which butterflies of two kinds have alighted. She's like—" But he has stopped, for a sound like a tea kettle cooling on the fire was filling his little room. "How contented!" sighed the artist. "This is better than rice." Then he said to the housekeeper, "We have been lonely, I see now." "May I humbly suggest," said the housekeeper, "that we call this cat Good Fortune?" Somehow the name reminded the artist of all his troubles. "Anything will do," he said, getting up and tightening his belt over his empty stomach. "But take it to the kitchen now, out of the way." No sooner were the words out of his mouth than the little cat rose and walked away softly and meekly. The third song of the housekeeper. "I'm poor and I'm old, my hair has gone grey, my robe is all patches, my sash is not gay. The fat goat of luck never enters our door, and no visitors come to drink tea anymore. Yet I hold my head high as I walk through the town, while I serve such a master my heart's not bowed down." The next morning the artist found the cat curled up in a ball on his cushion. "Ah, the softest place I see," said he. Good Fortune immediately rose and, moving away, began to watch herself with the greatest thoroughness and dexterity. When the housekeeper came back from market and cooked the small meal, Good Fortune did not go near the stove, though her eyes wandered toward it now and then her thistle-down whiskers quivered slightly with hunger. She happened to be present when the old woman brought in a low table and set it before her master. Next came a bowl of fish soup. Goodness knows how the housekeeper must have whittled to get that fish, but Good Fortune made a point of keeping her eyes in the other direction. "One would say," said the artist, pleased by her behavior, "that she understood it is not polite to stare at people while they eat. She has been very properly brought up. From whom did you buy her?" "I bought her from a fisherman in the market," said the old woman. "She is the eldest daughter of his chief cat. You know a young never puts out to sea without the cat frighten away the water devils." "Pooh," said the artist, "a cat does not frighten devils. They are keen. The sea demons spare sheep out of courtesy to the cat, not from fear of her." The old woman did not contradict. She knew her place better than that. Good Fortune continued to sit with her face to the wall. The artist took another sip or two of soup. Then he said to the housekeeper, Please be kind enough to bring a bowl for good fortune when you bring my rice. She must be hungry. When the bowl came, he called her politely. Having been properly invited, Good Fortune stopped looking at the other side of the room and came to sit beside her master. She took care not to eat hurriedly and soiled her with white round teeth. Although she must have been very hungry, she would eat only half her rice. It was as though she kept the rest for the next day, wishing to be no more of a bother than she could help. So the days went. Each morning the artist knelt quietly on a mat and painted beautiful little pictures that no one bought. Some of warriors with two swords, some of lovely ladies doing up their long curtains of hair, some of the demons of the wind blowing out their sheets, and some little laughable ones of rabbits running in the moonlight, or fat badgers beating on their stomachs like drums. While he walked, the old woman went to market with a few of the remaining pennies. She spent the rest of her time in cooking, washing, scrubbing, and darning to keep their threadbare house and their threadbare clothes together. Good Fortune, having found that she was unable to help either of them, sat quietly in the sun, ate as little as she could, and often spent hours with lowered head before the image of the Buddha on its low shelf. "She's praying to the Enlightened One," said the housekeeper in admiration. "She's catching flies," said the artist. "You would believe anything wonderful of your spotted cat." Perhaps he was a little ashamed to remember how seldom he prayed now when his heart felt so heavy. But one day he was forced to admit that Good Fortune was not like other cats. He was sitting in his special room watching sparrows fly in and out of the hydrangea bushes outside, when he saw Good Fortune leap from a shadow and catch a bird. In a second, the brown wings, the black up head, the legs like briars, the frightened eyes, were between her paws. The artist would have clapped his hand and tried to scare her away, but before he had time to make the least move, he saw Good Fortune hesitate, and they slowly lift first one white paw and then another from the spout. Unheard, with a loud whir of wings, the bird flew away. "What mercy!" cried the artist, and tears came into his eyes. Well, he knew his cat must be hungry, and well he knew what hunger felt like. "I am ashamed when I think that I called such a cat a goblin," he thought. "Why, she's more virtuous than a priest." It was just then, at that very moment, that the old housekeeper appeared, trying hard to hide her excitement. "Master," she said, as soon as she could find words, "Master, the head priest from the temple himself is here in the next room, and wishes to see you. What, oh what, do you think his honor has come here for?" "The priest from the temple wished to see me?" repeated the artist, scarcely able to believe his ears, for the priest was a very important person, not one likely to spend his time in visiting poor artists whom nobody thought much of. When the housekeeper had nodded her head until it nearly fell off, the artist felt as excited as she did, but he forced himself to be calm. "Run, run!" he exclaimed. "Buy tea and cakes!" And he pressed into the old woman's hand the last thing of value he owned, the vase, which stood in the alcove of his room and always held a branch or spray of flowers. But even if his room must be bare after this, the artist did not hesitate. Not guests would be turned away without proper entertainment. He was ashamed to think that he had kept the priest waiting for even a minute, and had not seen him come in and welcome him at the door. Scarcely felt Good Fortune rub encouragingly against his ankles as he hurried off. In the next room the priest sat, lost in meditation. The artist glowed low before him, drawing his breath politely, and then waited to be noticed. It seemed to him a century before the priest lifted his head and the far-off look went out his eyes. When the artist bowed again and said that his house was honored for so holy a presence, the priest wasted no time in coming to the point. "We desire," said he, "a painting of the dead of a Lord Buddha for the temple. There was some discussion as to the artist, so we put slips of paper, each marked with a name, before the central image in the great hall, and in the morning all the slips had blown over by yours, so we knew Buddha's will in the matter." Hearing something of your circumstances, I have brought our first payment with me so that you may relieve your mind of worry while at your work. Only a clear pool has beautiful reflections. If the work is successful, as we hope, your fortune is made, for what the temple approves becomes the fashion in the town. With that, the priest drew a heavy purse from his belt. The artist never remembered how he thanked the priest, or served him the ceremonial tea, or brought him to his narrow gate. Here at last was a chance for fame and fortune. He felt that this might be all a dream. Why had the Buddha chosen him? He had been too sad to pray often, and the housekeeper too busy. Could it be that Buddha would listen to the praise of a little spotted cat? He was afraid that he would wake up and find that the whole thing was an apparition, and that the purse was filled with withered leaves. Perhaps he never would have come to himself if he had not been roused by a very curious noise. It was a double kind of noise. It was not exactly like any noise that the artist had ever heard. The artist, who was always curious, went into the kitchen to see what could be making the sound. And there, sure enough, were the housekeeper and good fortune. And one was crying for joy and one was purring for joy. And it would have been hard to have said which was making more noise. At that, the artist had to laugh out loud. But it was not his old sad sort of laugh. It was like a boy's. And he took them both into his arms. Then there were three sounds of joy in the poor old kitchen. The second sound of the housekeeper. Now let me laugh and let me cry with happiness to know at last. I'll see him famously ere I die, with all his poverty in the past. I'll see the sand of the water walk, marked with the footprints of the great, and nobleman shall stand on top at ease about my master's gate. Early the next morning, before the sun was up, the housekeeper rose and cleaned the house. She swept and scrubbed until the maps looked like worn silver, and the wood shone like pale gold. Then she hurried to market and purchased a spray of flowers to put in the vase, which she had of course bought back the night before with the first money from the priest's support. In the meantime, the artist dressed himself carefully in his holiday clothes, combed his hair till it shone like lacquer, and then went to spray before the shelf of the Buddha. There sat good fortune already, looking very earnest, but she moved over the moment she saw her master. Together they sat before the image, the artist raising his hands and striking them softly from time to time to call attention to his prayers. Then, with a final low bow, he went into the next room and sat formally on his mat. He had never felt more excited and happy in his life. Today he was to begin his painting of the dead Buddha to be hung in the village temple, and seen perhaps by the children of his children's children. The honor of it almost overcame him, but he sat upright and expressionless, looking before him like a samurai knight receiving the instructions of his master. There were no rolls of silk near him, no cakes of ink with raised patterned flowers on their tops, no beautiful brushes, no jar of fresh spring water. He must strive to understand the Buddha before he could paint him. Feared he thought of Buddha Siddhartha, the young Indian prince, and the artist imagined that his poor small room was a great chamber, and that there were columns of gilded wood holding up a high ceiling above him. He imagined that he heard water falling from perfumed fountains nearby. He imagined that young warriors stood grouped about him, gay and witty boys, listening with him to a girl playing on a long instrument shaped like a peacock, with a tie of peacock feathers. He imagined that his poor hydrangeas were a forest of fruit trees and palms, leading down to pools filled with pink and white lotuses, and that the sparrows he knew so well were white swans flying across the sky. When the horse of a peasant farmer whined, he thought he heard horses in the stables and the trumpeting of an elephant, and then soon he would go out to compete with the other princes for the hand of his bride. Drawing the bow no other man could draw, riding the horses no other man could ride, howling down with his sword 2 threes where the others held down with but one, and so winning his princess to Sadara amid the applause of all the world. Even in that moment of triumph, the artist knew that Siddhartha felt no shadow of ill will toward his rivals. It was all fire and gentleness. A smile curved his lips. He held his head high like a star walking in night meadow. The artist looked out among his imaginary companions. All were young, all were beautiful. He had but to ask a boon, and Siddhartha's heart was reaching out to grant it before the words could be spoken. The swans flew over his garden, and feared no arrow. The deer stared unafraid from the thickets of flowers. The artist sought in his poor worn clothes on his thin cushion, and felt cells against his skin. Heavy earrings weighed down his ears. A rope of pearls and emeralds swung at his throat. When his old housekeeper brought in his simple midday meal, he imagined that a train of servants had entered, carrying golden dishes, heaped with the reddest food. When good fortune came in, cautiously putting one paw before the other, he imagined that a dancing girl had come to entertain him, walking in golden sandals. "Welcome, thrice welcome," he cried to her, but apparently good fortune had thought the room was empty, for she nearly jumped out of his skin when she heard him speak, and ran away with her white button of a tail in the air. "How wrong of you to disturb the master," scolded the housekeeper. But the artist was not disturbed. He was still Prince Siddhartha, and he was still wondering if all the world could be as happy as those who lived within the vine-covered walls of the palace which the king, his father, had given him. Bueno, esas son las primeras 9 páginas of this book. Lo vamos a dejar hasta ahí por ahora. Son 31 páginas, 31 páginas en total. Y leeremos una segunda y una tercera parte en otro momento. Gracias, Tito, por escuchar. Te quiero mucho. Gracias, Cherry, por escuchar. ¿Dónde estás? Cherry, ¿te ha gustado hasta ahora? Te quiero mucho. Ya, eso. El sentido Jorge, que también estaba escuchando. Gracias, tío.